FF. Yeah. Dream. I fell asleep amid the flowers. Understand that I'm his number one fan. But it's like you.
What up, though? Welcome to Review Rewind. I'm your host, John Lewis. Now, you might not be invited to the cookout, but you can come to the kickback, and that's what today is. We're doing a review rewind of Lupe Fiasco's 2006 album, Food and Liquor. This album came out in September of 2006. For me, I would have been in high school at that time. And just to take a trip down memory lane before we really get started. And again, if this is your first episode, check me out on YouTube. I announced the album probably about at least a good 3 days to a week in advance so that you can give it a pre-listen, a re-listen. That this episode is going to work a whole lot better so that you're not basing it off nostalgia and giving it a listen with fresh ears. But yeah, man, so this album, I would have been in high school in 2006 when this dropped. And when it came out, Lupe Fiasco, like, if you would have asked me, I would have felt like he was next up. Like, Jay-Z had been my favorite rapper for years. I feel like it would have been like Lupe Fiasco. I was big into Kanye West back then. So, you know, these kind of backpacky rappers that aren't the traditional rapper that you think of, you know? So when this album came out, I was really feeling it. Now, it's not my favorite Lupe album. I would still have to give that one a re-listen. I would say my favorite Lupe album is The Cool. But when this came out, I'm trying to remember what the mixtapes were. I don't even know if he had many mixtapes for this album when it first came out. But of course, some of the big hits off of this was Kick Push. He had Dream. I'm pretty sure, yeah, he had Dream, Daydream. And he had another hit single off of this one. But even back then, Lupe, it was looked at as that he was looked at as that kind of in that same lane of Kanye West of not like the rapper's rapper, but me being from Detroit, growing up on Motown, I had parents, I heard everything. Like overall, like my Mount Rushmore of just musicians, it'd be in no particular order. It'd be Jay-Z, Stevie Wonder, Kendrick Lamar, and it's hard to fill that fourth spot because I really like a lot of old stuff. Probably someone like Michael Jackson, but also like I get in these kicks where I like to listen to like a Otis Redding, or I have this playlist. It used to be on Tidal. I gotta find it on YouTube. I'm sure I could find it. It was like 6 hours long of just this samples that Jay-Z has rapped off of, and I just love to hear all of that old school stuff. So Lupe, being my Midwest brother, the brother from Chicago and Detroit are like super close. That's like the closest major city to us. We can get there in like maybe 5-6 hours. I don't know. So hearing this album when I was a 16-year-old, it was very influential, just the style of it. But going back and listening to it, I would say it hasn't aged as well as I thought. Now, this is the second episode in the series. Like the first one we did, I don't know why I started off with such a high level, but hey, that's how it goes, was the Black Album, and I gave that 5 mics. That's the way we doing our scores. Shout out to the source. Also, shout out to the internet people, the internet websites that keep their archives alive. I wouldn't be able to do the show without it. Pitchfork is where I'm going to be reading most of these reviews from. I don't know how to. Somebody sent me a link to Internet Archive. Shout out to whoever that was. They DM'd me on Twitter, and I still couldn't find it. I was trying to find some of these reviews for the source. I don't think MTV News, maybe they didn't do internet. I mean, maybe they didn't do album reviews. I don't know, but I know the Internet Archives. So in the future, if you can find like a direct link to the source or something like that, or MTV News, I kind of want to have like an iconic one. The main one is the source because they used to do the 5 mics. When I announced the album, if you could find a direct link to that, shoot me a DM or my email that's on all my YouTube info. You can find it. But yeah, we're going to be going for Pitchfork. And I do want to give my score for this. I'm going to be doing mics. And honestly, for me, like I said, this episode is going to work a whole lot better if you all gave it a re-listen. But after giving it a re-listen and just thinking of the way the thing, like how I view albums, I don't just view albums off the lyrics. I view it off of the concept. What was this person trying to do? Trying to tell a story. What were they doing? Like when you look at something like Kendrick Lamar, Good Kid, Mad City, not only is it one of the best albums of all time, it's one of the best rookie debuts of all time. Even though some people might say that's technically not his rookie debut because he had Section 80 and before that Overly Dedicated. But most people consider Good Kid, Mad City his main label rookie debut. So when you look at something like Good Kid, Mad City, that felt like he took you on an entire journey in the movie. And with this album, Food and Liquor, I kind of felt like Lupe was too much trying to imitate like a Nas or a Common, and he was so deep in it. It's a lot of the stuff like I really appreciate lyrics, but also it's the Jay-Z line, man. He said if skill sold truthfully, what he said, I want to rhyme like common sense. Truthfully, I sold 5 mil. I ain't been rhyming like common sense. If skill sold lyrically, I be Talib Kweli, you know? So it's that line of Lupe was too much common sense on Talib Kweli than being the Kendrick Lamar and the Jay-Z or even the Nas, especially Nas' early run, but especially with Nas' late run. Nas' early run, I feel like Nas did a lot better of what Lupe was trying to do. So all of that to say, I give this album 3.5 mics out of 5. And I did see the super chats. Thanks for supporting y'all. But we'll be checking out those at the end of the show, and I'll also be trying to read the chat through this review. So let's jump straight into the review. Again, this is from Pitchfork by Sean Fantasy, and hopefully this review isn't as pretentious as that last review. Also, hopefully they don't annoy me. I'm gonna try not to cuss as much on this one because I am going to be putting most of these reviews on Apple and Spotify in the future, and I don't want to have to edit as much. But yeah, so like I said, Sean Fancy, they have it as genre rap, label Atlantic, 1st and 15th, review September 21st, 2006. Lupe Fiasco is not the artist you think he is, though he's been touted as everything from deck-wielding hip-hop savior to the carpet-bagging passeur. Fiasco is actually more of a dilettante, which is not to say he's untalented. He is extraordinarily so. The Chicago MC sports one of the flipperiest flows I've heard in a long time. He's dexterous but never technical, sly but not arrogant. He rarely hangs on syllables too long and never wastes a word. And words are plentiful on his debut album. The long-delayed Food and Liquor, Fiasco's self-proclaimed entrepreneur wadding against a current he can't seem to condone. Hip Hop Circa, 2006. His first album, the work of an MC in love with rap's freedom of expression, but at odds with its current landscape. So, that first paragraph, it low-key kind of describes what I had to say without being too pretentious. But I would disagree with some of that. I do feel like Lupe is an arrogant rapper, but also you have to be an arrogant rapper. It's just to make it at that level. I mean, he got signed, especially in 2006. You got to remember. So this is only a couple years after T.I.'s second album. I always freeze up on live. His second album that came out in 2004. 2005 was The Game, the documentary. 2003 is Get Rich or Die Trying. So he was able to release this in that height of still it being gangster rap. And I want to say Kanye West College Dropout, was that 2005 or 2006, chat? Let me know. So yeah, Urban Legend, good looks. Yeah, Urban Legend. So this is only a couple years after Urban Legend, a year after documentary, 3 years after Get Rich or Die Trying. So it was something a little bit different, but also it still was that era of rap where everybody had a sound. Like I would say in the last 10 years, it became okay in rap to not have your own sound. Like especially in now it's the era of whoever I'm listening to. It's probably going to be like I don't watch TikTok, but speaking from a kid's perspective, whoever it is, it's going to be because of TikTok, and it's going to have their name, or they're going to have a music video and it's going to have their name, or it's on Instagram. Even back in 06, everybody really didn't have like iPods and stuff like that. So you just as a voice, you had to have a distinct voice, you had to have a distinct flow. So when you look at somebody like the rappers I named, like without even looking at their album, you can hit, a T.I. flow. Even a guy from his hood, a Young Dro flow and voice, Young Jeezy, The Game, 50 Cent, Young Buck. All of these guys were so different. Kanye West, Jay-Z. You know what I'm saying? Now it's so many like Lil Baby. It's like 10 rappers that sound like Lil Baby. It's a lot of Young Thug clones. Like back in the day, you would get clowned for that. You couldn't sound like another rapper. Not only did you have to rap, you had to sound like somebody else. Or these more local artists like in Detroit, everybody got the same beat. Everybody kind of got the same hook and stuff. So for Lupe to even get to this level, being the type of rapper he was, it says a lot. But the thing is he's so wordy. I feel like it hurt him, especially with this album. And I'm gonna get back to the review, but I felt like this album, like he didn't have a lot. He didn't have a lot of focus. Let me read the super chat I got. That was high school for me too, fam. Big up, classic. And thanks for the $5 super chat. But let's get back to the review. So they say, when Fiasco misses classic status in his sonic approach, the album's sound, produced in large part by the First and 15th production duo Soundtrack Prolific, is clearly influenced by the bombastic, daring duo of Kanye West's Late Registration, the record on which Fiasco is famously introduced. Much of Food and Liquor is draped in stuttering, chopped strings and blaring guitar. Tracks like He Say, She Say, and Sunshine, with their sweeping violas, sound like manipulative film music, undermining the MC bursting with enthusiasm by portraying him as some sort of epic figure, here to erase and rewrite rap lore. Call it score hop. Only the sentiment doesn't match the performer, particularly for rapper blowing up because he wrote a death song about skateboarding. He also blogs, loves anime, collects toys. Not exactly the stuff of Toy Story. I don't know who the hell that is. So yeah, I actually agree with that. It's like it's not that Lupe is too nerdy or something like that. It's just that the album was kind of all over the place. Like his most well-known song, if you're a casual, is Kick Push. And for this album, I'm gonna be real, Kick Push 1 doesn't really fit theme of this album, and for him to call it Food and Liquor, I'll be honest, the album doesn't really feel like it has a real theme to me. And maybe we'll go track by track later. But honestly, as a music fan, I'm a bigger fan of Kick Push 2, which is one of the last. I think it's actually the last track on this. But the reviewer, he mentions that Lupe was featured on Kanye West's Late Registration, Touch the Sky, and that was my shit. That album hit, man. I mean that record hit. But yeah, when we get to different tracks like Sunshine, that's probably one of my favorite tracks on there. But it shows that it's so much going on in this album. Like if he would have made an entire album that sounds like Sunshine or He Say, She Say, which are two standout tracks in my opinion, along with Kick Push, I feel like the album would have been a whole lot better. It's just, you know what I'm saying? The album, it jumps all over the place. Like just looking at the track, I enjoy the second track on here, Real, but it really doesn't work with Kick Push or I Got You. Then when you jump down to Sunshine, or I like the record, not the album. It's a lot of these records, man. It just felt unfocused to me. it feels like more of a really, really good mixtape than it does album. And y'all gotta remember, I'm looking at this as an album from 2006. Some of y'all younger music fans watching this or listening to it may not really understand where I'm coming from, because now albums, it feels like most albums are just playlists. They just thrown out there to see what can get hits on TikTok, what can get the people dancing. And okay, the algorithm told us, woo, 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 this hot. But you got to remember, when you go look at something, the documentary, which came in second place, I think. I don't know. We'll eventually get to the documentary. That's one of my favorite Rookie albums also. But something like the documentary, when you listen to that, it's similar to Good Kid, Mad City. It feels like you're hearing the life of the gang. Or something like 50 Cent, Get Rich or Die Trying, which we'll have to see how well that age, but it kind of all flows together. This album, man, it really doesn't, in my opinion, I'll keep saying it really doesn't feel as focused as it felt to me as a 16-year-old. Let's get back to the review. Where West mined humor and pathos out of his delusional grandiosity, Lupe too often falls back on smug infighting. On the closing verse of the mostly sublime Jill Scott assisted jazz joint Daydreaming, Fiasco, with the witty tone of a nasty Shy Ali, mocks his peers. Now come on everybody, let's make cocaine cool. We need a few more half-naked women up in the pool, he raps. Only second later, he swallows that shit and stops grinning, opting for introspected. I like to think the streets that drove me crazy and all the television out there that raised me. Why the ridicule before the contemplation? Maybe it lies in Fiasco's faith, which dictates some of the preachier verses. The influence is clear on Intro, which echoes the opening track of Mos Def's debut and a brilliant and scary American Terrorist. Yeah, man, I gotta look up this reviewer, because he's not as pretentious as the people that were on the Black album. Like, I'm really agreeing with a lot what he has to say. And the thing that a lot of people my age and younger a lot of things that kind of drove us away from Lupe is he did always come off as that preachy guy. Like, this album feels like if this album feels like if a 25-year-old black bread tuber made a rap album. Like, it feels more preachy. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know how old Lupe was. He might have been around 26. I don't know how old he is now. Somebody in the chat look that up for me. Let me know how old Lupe would have been in 26. But it just feels more preachy. And yeah, man, that line of, it's like he's trying to say that he's better than rap. Let's make cocaine cool. We need some more naked women by the swimming pool. But also, like, it's so weird to me that he kind of it always seemed like he looked down on the other Chicago guys, and then he would drop a record like, I don't want to keep saying the name of that album. I mean, that record. I might mess around and get flagged. Y'all know how YouTube is. We'll just call it American T. Like, on American T, yeah, I get you're talking about what's going on in the Middle East and stuff like that, and George W. Bush and, you know, the fallout from 9/11, but also, bro, you're from the west side of Chicago, and it feels like he's more focused on, oh well, I'm not a part of that. I'm more focused on what's going on over there and this, you know, these oil companies and Bilderberg and Blase Squad. But also, bro, like, look what's going on in your own backyard. It always felt like he kind of looked down on that. That's just the way I felt it. And like, he felt like he was better than everybody else. And he's like, oh, I don't ride big rims. I'm a skateboarder, and I watch this anime and subtitles. Oh, y'all watch anime, but I bet y'all watching in dubs, you know? He was 34 then? That can't be right. There's no way Lupe was 34 in 2006. That's 18 years later, bro. Fix your math. He was not 34 in 2006. That would mean he's 52 now. He's not the same age as Jay-Z. But let's go back to the review. Most troubling is Fiasco's apparent inability to write fly hooks. Yo, this guy, I gotta look this guy up after this. This guy is on his game, man. Most troubling is Fiasco's apparent inability to write fly hooks. While his verses are packed with wit and double meaning, his hooks are mostly blandly sung, unmemorable couplets. This highlights what may be Food and Liquor's biggest flaw. It's just not that fun. This is not to say there isn't a place for grand, thoughtful hip-hop. There isn't nearly enough. But on the strength of First to 15 mixtape, the joyful Kick Push and Interesting I Got You, one of the best Neptunes tracks in years, Fiasco's at his best when he's a bit livelier. This is to say nothing of Outro, another grandiloquent production minus the intelligence. It's 12 minutes of Lupe shouting out people like MTV, his nieces, nephews, and his big homie Shondell. It's barely listenable once, let alone repeatable. There is also a track in here produced by Linkin Park's Mike Shindola featuring one-line drawings, Jonah Murtaga, which we will say no more. Yeah, for real, man. That's the thing. Okay, somebody fixed. I was about to say, you out your mind. He was 24. And to say, and comparing that with what this last paragraph said, like, man, it's why, like, when y'all see me and Bill, I think I'm actually a couple years older than Bill. I think Bill might be like 32 or something. It's why, like, me and Bill, when we do our live streams and stuff from videos, we say, like, we don't consider ourselves leftist compared to what your favorite internet bread tubers, whatever y'all want to say, consider themselves leftist, just because that stuff, like, we don't look at it the way they do. It's like it's the arrogance of youth, and you can definitely feel the arrogance of youth of Lupe at 24 years old. Of, oh, I'm a rapper, but I'm not a rapper. I forget what his style was. Like, I remember back in the day, like, he was like, oh, I don't wear Louis Vuitton. I wear Goyard, which is a dope brand. It's basically like, it was actually out. They beat Louis Vuitton. They've been out maybe about 5 years. Don't quote me on that. Before Louis Vuitton, but they're still around now. Like, people that are really into fashion, that Goyard print is really nice. If I had the money to blow, I would probably cop a Goyard built. I really like it. But, like, he was at, I'm not in the Louis Vuitton and Gucci and stuff. I'm in the Goyard. Y'all don't even know what Goyard is. And the way Lupe does arrogance, it's just different than the way, like, a Jay-Z would do arrogance. Like, on Jay-Z, when he did, it's like he was kind of trying to do the Jay-Z arrogance of when you listen to Jay-Z Life and Times of Sean Carter Volume 1, he's talking about Hermes boat shoes and Izod buckets. Like, in 97, dudes did not know what Hermes was, but it never felt like Hove was talking down to the people. It's like he's from I'm on some G shit. You know what I'm saying? I'm on that fashion y'all don't know about. But Lupe, he just always had that arrogance. It's the way you deliver things. You know what I'm saying? It's why, even though I don't have the biggest channel, a lot of people in my comments would say, like, you know what, your videos, when you talk about a topic, it feel more like a black cousin or somebody at the barber shop compared to, you know, a lot of the other young black YouTubers. And you see that with Lupe. And what this guy said about hooks is perfect. It's why I can't get into a lot of rappers. Like, Freddie Gibbs, to me, if you're talking street rappers, he's one of the best street rappers, because, like, not only can he spit, but, like, his hooks, man, like, his hooks are, like, they just get stuck in your head. Like, the rheumatic, I pray my trap and never jam on me. Yeah. I pray my trap and never jam. Like, that's Freddie Gibbs. Man, like, that, like, when you listen to somebody like Freddie Gibbs, it just sets it a different level. Like, him, Freddie, and Benny the Butcher were supposed to do an album, and Benny would have got his ass kicked. I still wish the album would have came out, but, like, Freddie is just on a different level. And Lupe, what this person said is perfect, man. Like, his weakness is he isn't able to deliver hooks. It's a reason why, while Kick Push may not even be his top in the top 20 lyrical Lupe records, it's a reason why that record is memorable. You got to be able to, you know what I'm saying? You got to be able to balance that. You got to be able to balance that lyricalness with that sugar. You know what I'm saying? It's why Jay-Z made the record Ignorant-ish off of American Gangster. Someone said Jay-Z is Braggadocious, exactly. It's like braggadocious versus bourgeoisie. Man, that'd be, if I did a video essay, that'd be a good title. Like, yeah, man. In rap, we like the braggadocious. We don't like the bourgeoisie. You know what I'm saying? That's not the person that just said Jay-Z is braggadocious, but like, yeah, that's perfectly explains it. Lupe has always been more bourgeoisie than he has been braggadocious, and in that he puts off the people that I feel like if he kind of humbled himself and made himself more relatable, he could be. And we'll probably get into this later, and some people disagree, some people agree, but if you follow Lupe, to me it felt like he's been jealous of Kendrick Lamar for years, because he felt like Kendrick is where he should have been. Like, Kendrick is that rapper that can make like deep albums, man, like Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, to Pimp a Butterfly, all the way back to Section 80 with Keisha's song. Like, he could make all of these genres, but also have hooks, and you know what I'm saying, like people outside of anime nerds and skateboarders and stuff like that. You feel me? But let's keep reading. Of course, this sounds negative, but it's more the notes of a slightly disappointed fan. I never fell in love with the highly regarded leak of this album months ago, but this is an improvement with future funk tracks like The Cool from Kanye West and I Got You added to the mix. The album's best song, Hurt Me So, is an ostentatiously conceived as much of the album, brimming with lush strings and a single plinking piano courtesy of Needles, his only solo production. Yeah, and Hurt Me So, man, like that record was really good. Like I said, man, what he would do, he'll drop a joint like Hurt Me So, and you be like, why isn't the whole album like that? And then he'll go on a run of joints like Pressure. Even though I'm a huge Jay-Z fan, that record didn't fit. Or the Emperor soundtrack, or I Got You. Like, it's so much fighting against this album. It's like he didn't know what he wanted to do, and he could have took it in so many directions and leaned heavily in that direction, and he could have had a classic album. And a lot of that stuff goes into who you have in your camp. Like, he never really had Jay-Z as a full-time mentor. And for Jay-Z to be on his rookie album, that means that Jay saw the potential of him as a rapper. It's not a lot of people that Jay-Z appeared on their first album. He was on Drake's first album. He was on J. Cole. Yeah, J. Cole's first album, but also J. Cole is a Jay-Z artist. He wasn't on Kendrick's first album, but he jumped on the Kill My Vibe remix off of Kendrick's first album. And then he was on this first album. But yeah, I feel like if he would have been under somebody to kind of focus him, like, yeah, man, I know that's what you want to do. We need to take it in this other direction if this is what you're trying to do. It's so much that I feel like he could have done a whole lot more, and pushing in those other directions hurt him a lot. Lyrically, Fiasco is vivid and nimble and appealingly contradictory. He opens with the accusatory, I used to hate hip-hop, yep, because of the women degraded, and then explains he was swayed by Too Short's humor. He later questioned Jay-Z, a noted supporter of Fiasco's, and his never prayed to God, I pray to Gotti credo from the Evils, only to become a convert after his 30th viewing of The Streets Is Watching, which has him back giving props again. All essential battles for any serious hip-hop fan. But this is a tough tightrope for any MC to walk, and Lupe is let down by what is supposed to be the best, to be this album's selling point, the music. Reportedly, Fiasco modeled Food and Liquor after Nas' advent, if overblown, follow-up to Illmatic. It was written, the illuminous everything, Fiasco's putting the phantom before the horse, so to speak. He hasn't released a classic gritty album yet. Instead, he's attempted to ascend to a status he hasn't earned, and frankly, shouldn't want. This is no call for Lupe to tone down his aggressively thoughtful themes, merely to reframe them. He doesn't have to be a savior. That there's no one to save. Man, Usually I thought because of how pretentious a lot of them people for the Black Album was, I just figured that Pitchfork was going to be on some. Well, actually, if you listen to this album, it's this and it's that, and it's one of the best. But I really agree with pretty much everything this guy said. Like, Lupe is rapping like an artist that's been in the game 5 to 10 years, and he wasn't. And for this to be his first album, man, it comes off as really arrogant. It comes off as more bourgeois and too preachy, when he could have taken it a whole lot of other directions. Like I said, it's standouts on it. And that was the end of the review. So we can go through the records first. We can go through the records. The intro, it really isn't any rapping on it. It's kind of just rolling you into it. And Real with Sarah Green, it's a nice record. And the thing is, I just listened to this a couple days ago, and what made me give it a 3.5 out of 5 mics is so many of these records, because they don't have hooks, they kind of just fall into each other, you know. Real, it's a good record. Just Might Be Okay. It kind of has that soulfulness of it. It's like a lot of these records, they almost feel like they could have been. It almost feels like they could have been Kanye West records. They almost feel like they could have been Nas records, but they don't go in either direction. You know what I'm saying? They too much in the middle. Kick Push, of course, everybody knows that. And I know this isn't what he wanted his legacy to be. This was almost like a pump it up for him. It almost got him in a lane like he didn't want to be. Like, I never listened to Joe Budden. I don't know, he's a weirdo to me. Well, people that listen to Joe Budden say like he's a really good lyrical artist, but if you were casual, you only really know Joe Budden from Pump It Up. And if you were casual, like I told my old lady, I'm like, yeah, I'm doing Lupe Fiasco Food and Liquor on this episode. She's like, oh yeah, I remember that. Kick Push. You know, I got you. This is another one that it works. It's more memorable. It's one of the only ones with a real hook on it. You want the realness? Hey, I got you. You know what I'm saying? It works, but he wouldn't take it in that direction. The instrumental with Jonathan, I don't even remember this one. He Say, She Say. I like this one. It's pretty dope and lyrical. It's some good storytelling. Then we get to the second half of the album. You got Sunshine, and this is the one. This one of the records. I say, if he could have took it in that, if he could have took the album in an entire direction of Sunshine, it would have worked. Like, you're my sunshine, you're my moonlight. He has, I forget who's on the hook of that, but the flowing of it, it could have been like on closer to something that you would expect from Common. And if he would have made a whole album like that, I feel like this album would have been a whole lot more memorable. And Daydreaming, like this one, it has Jill Scott on the hook, but he's rapping about like a metaphorical robot and stuff, and it's just kind of weird, man. Like he's trying to do too much on it. The Cool is a nice record. To me, it was a lot deeper when I was 16 when this album dropped, and listening to it now, it's cool, but it's like he's rapping about a man that was shot, and he comes back as like a zombie and dug out of his grave and goes back to his old hood. And you know, I don't know, man. Hurt Me So, one of the standouts. This is another one. I feel like if he could have made an entire album that was similar to Hurt Me So and He Say, She Say, this entire album would have stuck out a whole lot more. These are the records that stand out to me. Like, even though they don't have good hooks, he could have got away with it if he would have made more soulful joints like that. This is a type of album, it would have worked better if he would have kind of went the old school way and only worked with a couple producers. And you get to Pressure. Just one of my least favorite records on this. Also one of my least favorite Jay-Z verses on here. American T. And this is the record I'm talking. This is another one of the records I'm talking about. It just kind of comes off as more preachy. he's talking about, like, this was back in '06, you know, Gaza and Bilderberg, and you know, funding these companies that makes money off of, you know, these atrocities and stuff. Like, yeah, I get it, man, but also, like, dude, the album you're trying to make, you could be talking more about about the stuff that these younger dudes in Chicago could understand, you know. Not to say that you can't get into that, but also this is your rookie debut album. Like, it's just it's hard to describe, y'all. The Emperor soundtrack, again, I don't even remember this record, and I just listened to this album. It doesn't stand out enough for me. And Kick Push 2, I really enjoyed it. It's some good storytelling about a kid and his little sister, you know, hustling, trying to make money, begging and stuff. But yeah, man, then the outro, it's really not even the record. It's just him talking. It's like, if you listen to the Black Album, it's like the last half of the second. The outro on Food and Liquor is like the second half of the last record on the Black Album, where Jay-Z rapped on the first half of that, and then he closes it out with saying his thank yous. But Lupe is throwing all of these thank yous to cousins and producers and MTV and stuff. Like, dude, this is your first album. We don't need all of that, you know? Yeah, chat. Let me know. And I'm gonna just make an edit point. So when I edit, let me give it a clap.